In this video, we're going to be tying a fly called Slattery's OD Stimulator. This is the original design stimulator before Kaufmann got a hold of it. It is made to look like a fluttering stonefly. We're going to tie it in a golden stone color here today. First thing you're going to do is start with a Daiichi 1270 hook in a fairly large size, either a 4, 6, or an 8, and some Vivas 6/0 thread, either brown or tan. Now the first thing we're going to do is start at basically a third of the way back from the eye of the hook, or 2/3 up of the way from the bend of the hook. We're going to start with some elk hair. We're going to take just a small little clump of elk hair. If you want to tie this like the original, you don't need to stack it. The original was kind of this fluttering, wild-haired little thing, so it's supposed to look like a fluttering salmon fly on the water, so a lot of the hair was never stacked. I stack mine, just like the looks of it, because I'm a little more OCD. And we're going to basically have a tail that's about 1/4 to 1/3 of the length of the shank of the hook. So a pretty short little tail. And I just measure it where I want to cut, and I trim it to length. You don't have to do it this way, it's just a little cleaner and easier. And I'm just going to take a loose wrap of thread, and a second loose wrap of thread, then bite down and wrap through all those butt ends. That'll secure them and help keep my clump from rolling. And this whole time I've kept hold of my clump, pulling it up and off the shank of the hook just a little bit. Just enough to keep it up centered and keep it from rolling from side to side. And you can go through it a couple times just to secure it a little more. And there we go. Tails in. No hassle. And no crazy fibers everywhere. Now the next thing we're going to do is tie in the rib. For this I'm just using some small copper wire. The original looks like used some type of thick thread or monocord or floss, like a tan or orange color. So you can use that. Wire's a little more durable, but it adds a little bit of weight. So either one works just fine. It's just going to be used to basically counterwrap through our hackle through the body. Now the next material we're going to tie in here is a little bit of hairline dubbing. I'm using a golden olive color. This will look like a golden stonefly, but you can tie it in whatever color you want. Black, salmon fly orange, whatever you feel like doing, whatever you want to imitate. They all work. This is one of my favorite colors though. And we're dubbing just a fairly uniform body, slightly tapering forward. And you want to stop on this fly a little earlier than you think. So we don't want to wrap too far forward with that dubbing. So I'm going to stop, I mean it works out probably a little less than 2/3 of the way. So a little over half, I guess I should say. Then we're going to take a rooster saddle feather. The reason I'm using a saddle feather is because you can get a nice long feather, which means you can use it more than once on this fly or on multiple flies, but also you get a lot more length, which makes it a little easier to handle, and then you don't run out of feather when you're wrapping down the back of the fly here. We're going to tie that in right there where we stopped with the dubbing. This is a grizzly feather, grizzly rooster saddle. We're going to take that and just wrap around one full rotation, and then I'm going to spiral it backwards here. And when I get to the wire, I'm just going to wrap through that hackle equal number of times as I wrapped with the hackle. So basically I'm laying a thread, a wrap of wire over each, a wrap of wire over each wrap of hackle. That will keep it nice and secure. You could trim out any extra hackle fibers and trim out the stem of your grizzly hackle feather. Just sneak in there with the tip of your scissors. And you can just kind of stroke everybody back there and get them all out of the way. Now we're going to take our thread right there to our hackle, and we are ready to tie in the wing. Wing is the same material. It's going to be some natural elk hair. Same thing applies though. If you want to stack it, go for it. We'll stack it here today. If you don't, perfectly fine. That's how the original was tied, was loosely stacked. And we want this wing to basically hang over the body of the fly, but not quite go past the tail. So I'm just going to measure it out here with my fingers and trim it to length. And we're going to just take a loose wrap with thread, second loose wrap, and then we can bite down and wrap through all those butt ends. And we can wrap back up onto it a little bit. Basically we want to wrap right up into where we tied in that grizzly hackle. If you have a few stragglers, you can either coax them back into shape or trim them out, either way. Now you can see how it's a little wild haired and everything. That's actually fine. You can leave it that way. That's how the original was tied. It's supposed to look like a fluttering salmonfly or stonefly, like I said. If you don't like that and you want to lay down, a little trick is just grab the whole clump nice and tight and then just push forward a little bit. And that will help curve and kink those fibers and help them lay down. Don't have to do that. It just depends on the look that you're going for. Now the next thing to do is to tie in the legs of this fly, which will be dun hackle. You can also use grizzly dun hackle. And this time I am using a cape, but you can also use a saddle from a rooster if you have it. I just have a cape dun feather right now, so that's what we're going to use. Just tie that in right in front of your wing. Now we can build up basically the little dubbing landing pad for those that hackle there. Oh, and I forgot to say this hackle is also oversized. So you can see my first wrap, it is longer than the grizzly hackle fibers that I tied in. That's on purpose. This is supposed to really help the fly ride high. It's also supposed to help the fly dance on the water. So you want it to be larger than the grizzly feather that you used. All I'm doing is building up a little dubbing landing pad, which will help that dun feather lay down, sit nicely. All right, there we go. I'm going to take one full wrap right there on the wing, and then you can just kind of spiral it 2 to 3 times. After that, forward. That's enough. That's all you need. Capture it. And you can see I still have some space left. That's on purpose. That is going to be used to build the head of the fly. If you've ever seen a salmon fly, it's got kind of this big blocky head right up by the front, and that is what we're looking to imitate here. That's another big key difference from this fly to the common stimulator that you see now, is it doesn't really have a head on them. At least the ones that are commercially tied nowadays don't. This fly has a head on it where the hackle basically stops and you just have a dubbing head. Don't be afraid to build a fairly large blocky head. That's what we're going for. Be generous. Don't crowd the eye, but at the same time, don't be afraid to build up a nice conical sized head on this fly. If you crowd the eye a little bit, just back off. There we go. I think I'm pretty happy with that. And whip finish. And you are essentially finished. Like I said, the original kind of had kind of a fluttering look to it, so they kind of looked like that. You know, they were just kind of wild looking, and they just sit there on the surface and skate around in the current and really drive those fish mad. So that is Slattery's OD Stimulator.